Hello, welcome to Lochaber Talks. I'm Marie, and today I'm interviewing the Green candidate for the Ward 21 by-election is Marit. So if you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me on. So my name is Marit Behner-Coady. I live in Lochaber. I have a young son. I live here with my husband. I'm working as an operations manager for our Lochaber mental health charity, and I'm really excited to be able to speak to you today.
That's great, thanks very much. So we'll just get straight into the questions. So the first question was, do you support the LGBT community and are you aware of the issues faced by them in Lochaber?
Yeah, of course I'm totally in support of the LGBTQIA community. I count myself as part of that community. And I'm aware that especially in a kind of very rural and remote area like ours, the issues faced by members of our community are very different from that in an urban context, right? Access to services, access to like-minded people can be really, really difficult. It's very easy to feel very isolated.
Yeah.
And so finding ways to support people in our community is really important. That starts with young people having appropriate counselors in their schools, having people that are specifically trained to deal with LGBTQIA issues. That goes on to raising awareness in different community groups and making sure they're accessible and inclusive to everybody. Um, so that's things that are really on my mind and finding ways to support our community in various ways. Yeah, that's important to me.
That's good. So the next question was, if you're elected the ward councillor, would this be your only job?
I've just recently started working as an operations manager for a mental health charity, and that's a 2 day a week job, 2.5 days. I would probably carry on doing that role because it puts me on the ground exactly where our people are. You know, it gets me talking to members of this of our community here in the ward, and I would then dedicate the rest of my time to be the counsellor for this ward exclusively.
Because you would have a lot of you would have a lot of time. The community council meetings happen a lot at the evening, and there's quite a lot of community councils in Ward 21. And of course, you would have to travel to Inverness, for the big council meetings that they have and everything. So it is quite a time-consuming job.
It absolutely is. And I'm sure that with, my part-time role, combining those things, having that work flexibility is absolutely doable.
Okay, that's good. So the next question was, do you think that the Highland Council should be broken up into smaller areas that serve their communities better than the current centralised model? Because a lot of people feel that the Highland Council is failing them, especially in Lochaber.
Yeah. So as a member of the Green Party, one of the things that we're really advocating for is local decision making and small scale decision making. It's really important that people feel like decisions that affect them are taken in their communities, and that is something that I'm for. So let's find ways to support community councils to make decisions locally, whether that be through funding them appropriately, providing extra training, providing extra resources. On the other hand, I don't really want to forget the fact that as a Highland Council covers such a big area, covers quite a lot of people, it's got a lot of leverage to pull when it comes to securing funding. So, for example, securing £30 million for the current ferry, or now, leveraging funding power to buy Moss Park care home. Those are really important things that wouldn't necessarily be possible just within community councils. So it's important to find that middle way between leveraging the bigger organization's power to raise funds and then making decisions at a local level by the people that are being affected by those decisions.
I think you'd find if you speak to people in the ward, quite a quite a high number of people would say that the old district council that was broken up mid 90s was far better service for this community as when all the services were taken away to Inverness, centralised in that.
Sure, sure.
Mm. Okay. So the next question was, what plans do you have for improving the local infrastructure, such as roads and public transportation? That'll be a big one round here, especially with the current roadworks that are going on.
Oh God, yes, I know. I've noticed. There's definitely a question as to whether the scheduling of those roadworks, maybe working between night work and um might have been a better option for the community, given the amount of um difficulty that's causing. But one of the things I will say is, my colleague Kate Willis, so she's on she's chairing the Fort William Active Travel Group. She's also involved with lots of other kind of transport related groups. I would do my best to support her in that work. I also know that the Lahaba area place plan is up for consultation next week on Friday. I'll be at that event, albeit with two different hats on. So I'll get a chance to really see what are the specific kind of infrastructure requirements, what's long term in the works, what's being needed, what are the priorities of the community, and work on that.
Mhm. Is, so would you support a fixed link over the convent hours?
Could you say that again? Sorry.
Sorry, would you support a fixed link at Corin versus the ferry?
I think there's a lot of different kind of opinions going on with the current ferry, and there is work towards two separate ferries, if I'm correct. Um, that seems to have been the solution that's being settled on right now.
Yeah. So the next question was, what steps would you take to address the affordable housing crisis in our area?
It's a great question. Since moving here, I've had to move, I think it's 5 times in 4 years because it is so difficult to get housing and to get long-term secure housing, especially as a young family. And one of the things I'm really, really passionate about is that we need homes here, not second homes. We don't need more Airbnbs. What we need is homes for people that work and live here. Um, so I'm in support of the transient visitor levy, TVL, to come in and kind of put pressure on more homes, maybe going back to local people. Um, I also think there's quite a lot of really good schemes being developed right now by community landowners that are facing really huge like difficulties and hurdles to get their schemes funded and even just through planning. So finding ways to make that more efficient because community-owned housing is housing that stays in the community. It's not going to get taken out as second homes or as Airbnbs. So really supporting those sorts of schemes in practical ways, I think is where I want to start addressing that affordable housing crisis.
So do you think then, going on that sort of thought, would you think that a local bylaw on second home ownership would be needed?
So there's currently a 200% council tax on second home ownership, which has raised a fair amount of money. And if we can put that money back into um, making building affordable homes, pushing that forward, I think that's a good step forward. Um, Additional bylaws is something again at a local level that I'd like to get to know community councils a bit better over time and see what we can do in each specific area.
Okay. So the next question was, how do you plan to boost local employment and attract more businesses to our area?
We have an incredibly attractive area, as can be seen by the masses of people that come and visit us, and that is it is attractive for businesses too. I'd really like to work with the third sector interface with the Chamber of Commerce and with Highland Island Enterprise to develop what they're already doing to support startups, to support smaller businesses, and to support community-owned businesses that are investing so much money back into the local communities and boost that employment.
Mhm. Just going on that, there's so much current employment that's seasonal. How would you plan to tackle that if you
There
could?
are a variety of ways that seasonal employment can be made into kind of year-round income. There's different ways to sort of defer pay and to support businesses with that. If it's a case of just making available more resources for them to know about that, then that's what we'll do.
So the next question was, What measures will you take to reduce the local carbon footprint and support promote sustainability?
Yeah, so I'm standing as a Green councillor because I really believe that we need to do something to tackle our climate and ecological crisis right now. Could have been standing as an independent. I decided that the Green Party is the party that needs to be more represented, not just on, issues of conservation or whatever. It needs to be green issues go through absolutely everything that the Highland Council does and needs to be represented. It needs to be represented in every single decision um, that we take. So, for example, one of the things that I really want to push for is more active travel. We here in Fort William we can do more by bike, we can do more by public transport. There are really, really good groups that are doing a lot of work, like for example, the Lahaba Bike Library. They make cycling that much more accessible and provide really good services. So supporting groups like that to continue their work to make kind of a greener living more easy is a good first step.
Okay. The next one was, what will you do to promote access to healthcare services for residents, particularly elderly and disabled?
Yeah, great question. So one of the things that I will absolutely do is continue to back the Belford build. That is a wonderful facility. It's got some amazing people. I received some really, really good care there only last year when I was pregnant. So I want to see that hospital be a great place to work up to the modern standards that we need. I'll also continue supporting in any way that I can that our NHS, is has the facilities it needs.
Hmm.
That being said, I'm also aware that there's a lot of community organizations now that are stepping in to provide care in the communities where the NHS services are not reaching. So, for example, I work for a mental health charity that is providing kind of frontline mental health support in communities that don't have that support necessarily all the time. And I'd like to see those community organizations that are providing that support right there in the communities that know the individuals that need that help in a better way. So, be that through funding, be that through training, be that through networking, whatever it takes to kind of enable us to have healthier, more cohesive communities in place, then that's what I'd like to do.
Okay. So the next question was, what plans do you have to create more opportunities for young people, both in education and employment?
That's a really good question as well. Thank you. So I think there's a lot of opportunities for young people in the green economy. We have great jobs coming, in forestry, in environmental restoration, continuing to support our educational institutions to bring those young people here, to keep them here, building more houses so that young people that have learned here can stay here, can put their skills to work here. I also think there's something to be said about the big sort of renewable energy schemes that are coming in to pay their dues and to employ local people, to train local people, to put resources into upskilling local people and making sure that they held accountable and that they do that.
Oh, that's good. So the next one was, how will you ensure that the residents have a voice in the decision-making processes of the council?
Yeah, so what's important, I think, is that as a councillor, you are active in the community that you're representing and that you're on the ground every day, meet people, work with people that live here. I will do that. My job is based out of Fort William and it covers all of Lochaber, but has specific emphasis on the Art American Peninsula. I'm there almost every week. And I'm in Fort William 2 days a week at least. So
Hmm.
I'm right here. I'm having those meetings, I'm having those conversations, and I'm not just having them at community councils, because as you said, a lot of community council meetings are late at night. They're a long way to travel. I'm at the school gate, I'm at the nursery, I'm at the bus stop. I live and work here, and you'll find me here. And I'm available to talk to people. And I will bring their voices and their concerns with me to the Highland Council.
A lot of the community councils have their meetings online.
Yeah, that makes it
Mm,
more accessible, that is for
yeah.
sure. But not everybody feels like they can access a laptop, they might find that
Mm,
really intimidating. And so it
yeah.
is about showing face and still being able to have a cup of tea and have a chat.
Mm-hmm. It's just another point there I was going to say was find a lot of the public consultations that the Highland Council have are limited online. And as you say, a lot of people can't get access online. And I was just wondering if you felt that council should be making a bit more of an effort with their public consultations, especially across in Arisaig and these places. You know, they usually have them during the day in Fort William, and I was thinking maybe they should be having them in the evenings, you know, when people are finished work and they can go along and see. I think that would be a good idea.
Yeah, you're raising a really good point there. That's exactly what it's about. If you're telling me, hey, the consultation's online or late at night, that doesn't work for me. So what does work for you? Where are you? How can we make sure that there is a space for you to come and comment? And if it means taking it on a roadshow, let's take it around different places. And I'm not a political kind of fossil. I'm really new to this, and I've got a lot of ideas, and I've got a lot of kind of out of the box thinking that I can bring to this role that's maybe not entirely occurred before. So I think, I'd call that my sort of strongest suit to say, okay, well, if these consultations don't work, how can we make them work? Let's be creative about it.
That's good. Um, so the next one was, what steps will you take to increase transparency and accountability in local government?
This is a really valuable question because you're absolutely right. Transparency and accountability are absolutely crucial. You can't represent people if that's not there. As I said, I'll be right in this community. I'll be really accessible and transparent, just by virtue of being here. Um, but you've also raised that point before that, accessibility is a really big point. How accessible are documentation? Do you know where to find minutes and accounts from community council meetings, from Highland Council meetings?
Mhm.
Are they readable? That is all really important stuff to look into, and make sure that people are aware where to find information, how to access it, and make it more accessible where it needs to be.
Just an example of that. There's business meetings that the ward councillors have, and they have them in private. Now, the only way you can ask for the minutes is if you go to the council and make an FOI request. I've seen this done myself. Um, would you say that that needs to change?
I do think there's quite often reasons, and they might come from business, they might come from council, to have certain meetings behind closed doors initially. But because the can meetings minutes can be requested, there is that kind of step towards greater transparency. I think if there's a concern that you have specifically, then I'd like to look into that for sure to see if we need to make if we need to remove a step, if we can remove a step.
Okay. It's just in the another point, sorry. I know that in the past that the ward discretionary budget is obviously controlled by the councillors, but I think a few times it money to think to places that were not necessarily popular with the public.
Mm.
So in that sort of thought, do you think that the ward discretionary budget needs to maybe have a public consultation?
I think, if I understand correctly, the word discretionary budget is, people can make requests to it, and if the budget is available, that is, decided on discretion. But certainly, the decision-making process needs to be properly documented and explained. And if it's felt that the decision making wasn't, in the interest of people more broadly, then having documentation of how that decision was made and making that kind of documentation more accessible is absolutely key to make sure everybody feels like they've had a say in that kind of decision making.
Okay. The last question was, what areas of spending would you prioritise? Where do you think cuts can be made without negatively impacting the community?
So we've seen years and years of austerity and cuts and cuts and cuts, and that's not been good for anybody. And we've all suffered under that. I think what we need to do first is raise more money. So the transient visitor levy or tourist tax could raise a lot of money that can be invested back into our infrastructure and into affordable housing. The money that's being raised through the 200% council tax on second homes, that money needs to be invested back into these communities that are suffering from the fallout of having so many visitors, having so many empty homes. And so investing back from these kind of schemes, investing back into our communities, that's my first step. Invest back into housing, invest back into public transport.
So, just an example in the past, when the budget's come up with the council and they've made cuts to local services, it's always the additional support needs that gets cut.
Yeah.
Um, and absolutely, because you've got the transport in there, you've got your support workers for the additional support needs in primary schools and things like that. So yeah, that's good. So I think we've got time. I can maybe ask you one more question. Um, what drives you to be a counsellor?
I love this question. That's a really great question because I've only recently joined sort of this politics world. And what I've always said is when I get to 30, I'm going to start, I've done a bit of living and I've got something to see. And that's the point where I want to not just experience, but change, make things, progress things, make things, be active and influence stuff. Um, I have turned 31 not long ago. And when I was asked to stand and if whether I would consider standing, I was like, yeah, do you know what? I've always said to myself that I want to go and I want to make a difference locally. I think because a lot of the decision making happens on the Highland Council level, I decided that's where I want to go because I can still make a local impact and shape my community, but I'm not super far away. I'm not down in Holyrood or, God forbid, Westminster. Like I'm here. I'm still here in the community. So that felt like the best way to support my community, make a difference, change something, while I still have my pulse on, what's actually happening, what's relevant with people that live and work here. And that's how I ended up here.
Well, I think that'll be fine for just now. Thanks very much for talking to us, Marit, and good luck.
Thank you.